Hello, everyone, and welcome to your last best hope for conversation, the newest and possibly shiniest Babylon 5 podcast.
Crossing genres.
Yes, we are. We are here at the round table discussing.
Oh, I see what you did there.
Yes, discussing the episode Grail. And as always, I have Lou.
Hello, everyone.
And Karen.
Hi there.
So, yeah, we have a very timely David Warner just passed, and he was I would think, main guest star on this episode.
Mm-hmm.
It is season 1, episode 15. So let's start with Karen. Thoughts on this one?
I gotta say, it's a million times better than TKO. I really, really like this episode. Plus, David Warner is always good. And we also had William Sanderson as Deuce in this, who, was in Blade Runner. And then I'm Larry, and this is my brother Daryl, and this is my other brother Daryl from New Hearts. I love this episode. And the fact that we got more of Kosh without getting more of Kosh was super interesting to me. So yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah, I was trying to work out a way to do Daryl and brother Daryl joke in the introduction. I decided to go with Roundtable instead.
Yeah, no, Roundtable's better, I gotta admit.
Mm-hmm.
Lou, how about you? Quick thoughts.
Yeah, I enjoyed this episode quite a bit. It filled in some backstory on the Babylon 5 stations. We got a little more insight into the Minbari race. And it was a pleasure to watch David Warner on this episode because he brought a gravitas to a role that could have been pretty cheesy. And it just shows you what a good actor can do for a role. And I thought he elevated the material every scene that he was in, and I really enjoyed it. The only quibble I would have is I was really hoping that William Sanderson, who I've loved since, Blade Runner as Sebastian, that he would have had a bigger part in this episode as well, because I actually wanted him to play the Jinxo character as opposed to the one that he had. But yeah, it's an interesting episode.
Well, this was before he got super famous. I think it was after Blade Runner, but it was before a lot of the other stuff. So I think putting him in that role made sense. I agree. I would have loved to see him as Jinxo. I mean, I think he would have done a much better job. The guy who played Jinxo was fine, but sometimes his facial expressions were weird.
Yeah, maybe it's accentuated because Warner is such a good actor, and Tom Booker, who played Jinxo, who I don't really know, the difference between their acting skills was pretty apparent. And and William Sanderson could have stepped up to a higher level than the Booker could have.
I agree.
And Tom Booker, if you're out there listening to this at any odd chance, please don't take that as a dish. This is just my impressions of what I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do agree with you. I had not thought about that, but that would have been because it would have been a really nice stretch for him to go from this beaten down character and then later finding a purpose. One of the things I really liked about this episode, and it's a funny episode in a lot of ways. It has a little bit of horror in it, but I like the idea, the Minbari respecting people on a religious journey or a quest, pardon the pun. The idea, whether it's legitimate or not, the idea of dedicating your life to some kind of pursuit, they find very noble and very inspiring. And I do think it was very funny when the episode starts out really funny with the breakfast, right? And Gabardi's just eating like he's in a contest.
Yeah.
And they're looking forward to it. And then all of a sudden, Lanier and Delenn are like, aren't you guys coming? There is a VIP coming, and they're both looking like, what? Yeah. And they have to leave breakfast to go. And then when they find out what it is, once again, Jerry Dole plays rolling his eyes, just is the great. I'm like, what? What was this?
Yeah,
doing?
and even Sinclair is rolling his eyes, saying, okay, the Grail, really? Are we not past that yet? I felt like he should have said, okay, go talk to Harrison Ford, because he knows where it is.
Yeah.
So, and I couldn't help thinking when someone asked Aldous, what does the Grail look like? I wanted him to say, it's the dusty one.
I kept on waiting for Warner to say to Jinxo, "You have chosen wisely."
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. One of the things that they mention on IMDb as a goof, and I did catch that, is in later episodes, and once again, I don't think this is spoilery, but it becomes an important plot point that there are 3 castes in Minbari. There is the worker caste, the religious caste, and
Warrior.
military caste, the warrior caste.
Yeah.
And so by them not mentioning them, I think retroconly you can say, well, that's because the worker caste is not considered as equal of the other 2, even though it's 3. So yeah. So that's my no prize. Back in the days, you used to try to explain something in Marvel. I want to talk to you, Lou, because you've been you have asked a lot of great questions about what's going on and what does this mean. So talk a little bit about were you happy with the reveals of what happening with the previous Babylon 5 stations?
Well, absolutely. Because I mean, we still don't know why they happened, but at least we know what happened. So that's a nice first step. And I got to tread carefully here because I know we've been getting feedback that we're sounding too impatient, but that was a wonderful revelation. It doesn't really explain why these things are happening, but it's just nice to know what happened, because they just said the previous 4 stations, and that's all we've gotten so far. So I was really happy to hear the backstory on all the previous stations, and it's interesting that they all didn't get destroyed exactly the same way, but it was mostly similar. But it's interesting that this Jinxo character was around for 4 of them, and they obviously played a funny beat at the end of the episode with Sinclair Garibaldi and Susanna, that they were waiting to see if the other shoe was going to drop when Thomas had left the station. And no boom today, but boom tomorrow. There's always a boom. So I like that. And maybe they were just having a little bit of fun with the whole mystery of the previous stations. So I thought it was a good morsel that I've been waiting for 15 episodes. So that was good.
Karen?
Yeah, I love that we got the backstory on the Babylon stations. That's one of the things that I've wanted to know more about. I'll take the fall for you, Lou. I want to know more. I want to know the full story about the Babylon. And I mean, I don't think it's unrealistic to want to know the full story about it. The fact that they weren't all destroyed the same way is intriguing to me. Were they all destroyed by the same people? And why? How did it just disappear into thin air, the 4th one? I do think it's funny that Jinxo was there for all of them, and again for Babylon 5. And I did love that beat where they're like, no, I don't believe it. And then when he leaves the ship, finally, they're like, okay, is he gone yet? Like they're waiting for something to happen. And then they're not. And again, I think that storyline, even if it's just a tiny little storyline, kind of mirrors the Grail in that there's a superstitious element to it. The Grail is a whole superstitious thing, and this whole thing with Jinxo was as well. So it was pretty cool that we got to learn about them, and also got to hear more about the Minbari, the fact that they treasure him as a seeker, and that Delenn puts Sinclair in his place, saying, yeah, seekers should be treasured no matter what they seek, whether you believe in it or not. And Sinclair is properly chastised, I think, for that.
Yeah, it made me think of your discussion right now. It made me think of, I just watched the season finale of Orville.
The Orville, yeah.
The Orville. And there is a point where Kelly, the second officer, is talking to someone, and she says that in their society, what you do is how you value your worth. Like, because, and they call it something else than the little feeders. Like, I'm trying to think of the Star Trek word for where you go to get food, right?
Right.
Yeah. So because of that, no one lacks for anything. And so someone asked the question, why don't you just sit around doing nothing? And they said, well, the issue we have is that's how in the past, money determined your worth. And now your worth is determined what you pursue in your life. And that could be working on a starship. It could be being a doctor. It could be or it could just be studying ancient languages or something, just doing something with your life. And I agree with you that I think poor Tom Booker, and we're going to pick on him, it still was very, I thought, effective as a storyline to see him go from Jinxo, I'm in debt, I've got this, everyone makes fun of me, everyone thinks I'm a bad luck charm, to him, well, I'm going to figure it out. This guy believed in me, Adolphus, and I'm going to therefore, and I love that line, no, I'm Thomas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not Jinxo anymore. I'm Thomas, finding that self-respect and going to doing. Now, the practical person, like, how do you pay for food? How do you pay for traveling on starships? But okay, let's just, maybe there's this. Maybe
I have to say, Aldous did mention that he gets all of the, resources of his order.
Okay.
And he said there's not much.
Yeah.
But the fact that he asked Sinclair to swear him into the order, I'm assuming that he gets access to whatever Aldous had as a seeker.
So there's maybe there's a grant in our terms
maybe.
that comes with a stipulant that you could pay for travel, and then and I could see as you go, the same way that I know in Protestant religions, or even other, I know Catholicism as well, when missionaries will visit a church, they'll do an offering, and all that money will go to the missionary. So I would think that could happen too, that people also
Delenn probably gave him a couple bucks.
Yeah, you gotta think so. Lanier, because he grew up in a monastery. He did. Right. So yeah, that's interesting.
Flipped 100 credits in his wallet or something.
Exactly. Yeah.
And then you notice that I was reading the Lurker's Guide, and not only did he survive all those, but when he leaves Babylon 5, he gets on a ship named the Marie Celeste, which is named for a boat that disappeared. So I think that's pretty funny.
I think that is very funny.
Yeah.
So any other thoughts about Jinxo and Thomas's role? I think it was a really well done a character arc for something in a very self-contained episode. The idea that he is making that change and finding purpose in his life.
I mean, the story of passing the torch to somebody else is not new, but I thought it was handled well in this episode. It really reminded me of a Tales from the Crypt movie, Demon Knight, if you've ever seen that. And that's the one where the main character is carrying a chalice full of the blood of Christ.
Okay.
Billy Zane's in that episode, and he's kind of like the devil, and he wants to get this talisman for evil purposes or whatnot. So they have to pass the talisman on to the next character, which was, I think it was actually Will Smith's wife. What was her name? What's her name again? I should know it after all the controversy on.
I should too.
Oh my goodness.
Jada Pinkett.
Yeah. So she was the new disciple, basically taking over from the other character. This episode reminded me of that movie quite a bit. I was kind of chuckling as I was watching it and going, okay, I get it.
And what's the name of the
Demon Knight?
Demon Knight. Oh, that's I may have to look that up.
Yeah, it's a fun B movie. It's pretty well done. And the guy that did the voice for Roger Rabbit's in it.
Oh, okay. Harold Slicer. I can't remember.
So
it's something like that.
So if to any listeners out there, if you want a fun B movie, Tales of the Crypt style, and it's a standalone movie. It's not like usually they have 2 or 3 like anthologies. mini episodes. This is a full movie on its own. So it starts out with a crypt keeper, but it morphs into this tale. And it's a fun movie. I quite enjoy it.
Okay.
Charles
I'll have to check that out.
Fleischer.
Yeah, Charles Fleischer.
Yeah. John Shuck's in it.
Yeah.
Who's a venerable.
The lead actor is in a lot of Frank Darabont.
Billy Zane.
No, the other one.
Oh. William Sadler.
Yeah, William Sadler. He's in a lot of Frank Darabont, Stephen King movies, Shawshank and Green Mile. So. And
Thomas Hayden Church is in it.
Yep.
Lots of people. It looks pretty interesting.
Oh, you guys, neither one of you have heard of this before.
No, I haven't. In fact, I'm going right now to kind of add it to my. I need to check out.
Yeah.
What a cast.
Yeah, it's a fun movie. Yep.
Okay.
Cool story.
I will check that out.
And I guess there's certain aspects of the character that Warner was playing that I wasn't sure. Like at times, he almost seemed to have sort of mystical powers because he was able to call out the creature. What was it called again? The Nakaline feeder, and get it to come out of the suit. That almost seemed like he had this power to control or some sort of
he did
presence.
He did one of these.
Yeah, it's like Jedi mind trick almost thing, but So he had, and whether that was just illustrating that if you have belief in something, that it elevates you in certain ways. And he was pretty good with the staff. And Warner made that prop work. Like he didn't look awkward with it, and did a little bit of kung fu, Shale and Priest stuff with it. So that was cool.
Yes.
And it's just, it just really emphasizes what a good actor can do with a role. And he even like his death scene, like what he would do with his eyes, like widen them when he was saying certain words. And I was really blown away with his presence. He really plays religious zealots quite well, and he's done that in other roles. Like he did that on Star Trek V, I think, or something as well. Same kind of character. So, and he's just got that voice, British voice, that just lends gravitas to everything. So I really liked his portrayal in this episode. And
that may be why we're not enamored with poor Tom Booker. Opposite. I mean, he was with David Warner pretty much through the whole thing, except for the very beginning, where he played opposite William Sanderson, who's also a really good actor.
Yep. Absolutely.
So I think maybe he's just overshadowed a little bit.
Even the actor they had for the judge, he almost reminded me of like Terrence Howard or something like that. He was
a little bit.
He had that again, that British voice going on. So that was pretty cool, and it was interesting to see the whole court system as well on Babylon 5. So that was pretty cool.
Let's talk about that. Let's talk about the fun thing they had where the guy's suing for damages and with the
little green man.
That was great.
And we get the reveal that everyone, and it's like, and this is just a one-off, right? This is not a big storyline. I think that it is not important for the story, but I guess that I read somewhere that this is a race that just loves playing practical jokes. And so that's why they would do this. They would almost like teenagers going and tipping over cows or doing something,
dang dog ditch and all that.
papering someone's house. That was what there was going to Earth. And so I thought that was a really funny beat to play with that.
Yeah, that was a nice nice take on a bug-eyed monster and UFO alien abduction. Series.
And the judge looking like, I can't believe, right?
Another one.
Yeah.
I like the judge too. I thought he did a good job with it. And also where he's being held prisoner by Deuce. And even then, no overacting, just, run.
Yeah.
It was very, very subtle, I thought. And I liked him. It was like totally under the radar acting, but very good.
Yeah.
While we're talking, I wanted to double check that I remembered correctly. David Warner, my favorite, first time I remember recognize him is the Time After Time, the David, the Malcolm McDowell, Mary Steenburgen, H.G. Wells.
Yeah.
I remember really loving that movie.
Yeah, he played Jack the Ripper, right?
He did, yes.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but he played MCP in Tron, and nothing will eclipse that for him, remembering his acting. I think his real life name was Sark or something like that. Anyway, He's very cool in anything that he's in.
Mm-hmm.
Any thoughts? What did you guys think about Kosh being the bad guy? And I using air quotes with Kosh.
Yeah.
It was a good hook for the opener, but I didn't buy. I didn't buy it though.
You did not?
No.
I thought he could be a brain eater. I realized that if I had really thought about it, I wouldn't have buy it. But I was like, really? That's what Kosh is there for?
Yeah.
But yeah, when he came out of the thing and he was all like, I knew it wasn't him because why would he hide that appearance?
Right.
Yeah.
His appearance has got to be much weirder than that to hide his appearance.
Yeah, so, no, I didn't buy it. It just was out of character for what they've established, and I don't think that's something that you could hide that easily. that's how they do something. I do have to say that the Nakaleen special effects were quite impressive. It never looked fake, which in the spectrum of special effects within the Babylon 5 show that we've seen so far, I was like, holy cow, like how did they pull this off? Because we're talking about like Apple computer graphics, right? Or Amiga graphics.
Yeah. Amiga, it has to be Amiga.
Yeah, so I don't know how they did that, but it was really well done, and it wasn't stop motion, and it wasn't. I guess it was CGI, but it sure didn't look like it. I don't know how they did it. I mean, there was
in the Lurker's Guide. It says it's the first CGI monster on B5. So
wow, they did a really good job.
They did.
I mean, the tentacles, the practical effects with the tentacles was pretty standard. I mean, it was okay.
Yeah,
but the CGI was. I thought, holy cow, this is really well done. It was. I was impressed.
Yeah. And once again, this was an episode not written by JMS, though he did say, and the writer is quick to point out, Christy Marks, that the episode was a little short, so JMS wrote the trial scene with the alien. So, but I thought it was, I do agree that Deuce was a pretty interesting little villain. And if I was retconning this, I would have had him as, instead of the weird looking alien as the head of I would have had him as a recurring figure, and he's the guy that's in charge of all kind of
instead of the praying mantis.
Yeah, instead of the praying mantis.
Okay.
I think that would have been really well. And
I'm doing my praying mantis impression.
I see that. I love that. Yeah. All right. So I think you either buy the Veer and Londo being afraid of this creature, or you roll your eyes and they overplayed it. Can
we do both?
Yes, I think so. Talk to me. Tell me, Karen. Tell me your thoughts.
Yeah, I rolled my eyes a lot, but I also buy that they're scared of it.
Yeah.
I didn't have to. I felt like I didn't have to be one way or the other.
Yeah.
It was believable that they would be cowards in the case of a brain feeder. But maybe not the biggest meal for the brain feeder.
Yes,
if you will. And I like the fact that they were involved, because then we get to see that these brain feeders have been around for a long time. And I'm assuming they're not always in this suit like Kosh, that they disguise themselves according to wherever they are. So yeah, I thought that was cool. And that we saw, of course, Garibaldi coming and telling them, when it's quiet, that's when you got to be careful.
Yes.
It was really funny.
And then they're both, and then Veer, let me in.
Do you hear something? No. It was very cool. I like that they sequestered themselves. And the fact that they were in the episode, that we got everybody but Jakar essentially in this, and the Psychor chick.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like that we got them involved in the episode.
Yeah.
We even had the doctor. Yep.
Exactly.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
I thought the Centauri reaction to that was overplayed. And I also would like, one of my other nitpicks was this episode. I found the music cues a little on the nose at times. So, and during those scenes, it was especially noticeable. So it's like, okay, we get it. This is supposed to be a comedic beat, but you're really overselling it here. But yeah, overall, it was such a small part of the episode. I really didn't mind it too much. I do wonder about the Minbari race and the religious caste, how What was Jesse? What's your thoughts on how they seem to really revere this character that was chasing something that, in like as Sinclair explained, is a myth, and especially like for us who've grown up on the Indiana Jones movies and that we roll our eyes a little bit. This thing, like, I'm curious, like, do they treat all religions from any species like this, or like what would they do if the Pope came to this?
Oh my goodness.
I do think though, because I think if we go back to this earlier season where they had all the different religious ceremonies and they showed Delenn and Lanier seem to be the ones embracing the most. Like, I think I think the idea is instead of ours is the one true religion and all of the religions are false, I think they come from the impression, and this is just me generally, is seeking truth, seeking a value in your life is in itself good, right? That what is the sign? The idea you want to please me pleases me. I think that's Thomas Aquinas or something. I'm ripping it from Sports Night because they talked about it, but the idea that I think that is their feeling, right? That they treat pilgrims very strong, and there is value in their world.
I would almost put them in the theologist category. Yeah. That they're more reverent of religion as a whole than fanatics for their religion.
Yeah.
And I like that about them, that they're open to other things. And I think I agree with you. I think any seeker of anything, as long as they're doing it for the right reasons, they're going to treat this way.
Yeah. So I did want to, we touched on this, but I want to know, and one of our YouTube, I can't remember who, but one of our YouTube posters said that as we get into the second season, we may start doing he suggested we do a segment of let's speculate what's coming in the future, which I love the idea. But I do want to, Babylon and Babylon 2 were sabotaged. I love the fact that you don't call it Babylon 1 because you didn't know it was, right? Were sabotaged. Babylon 3 blew up before it was finished. Babylon 4 vanished without a trace in front of witnesses. So let's put on our speculation hats and let's start with you, Karen, and then we'll go to Lou. Just riff on what do you think all that means? That the previous 4 with what happened, and the other question is why then, your thoughts on why they built 5. Like, what would they have kept doing this?
Yeah. Who is it that said when you keep doing something after you've failed, it becomes stupidity or whatever? I can't remember the
definition
of insanity.
Yeah, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results.
Right.
Yes.
And that is it Einstein maybe that said that? Yeah. I have a little bit of that in my head. I also feel like, well, in our space program, we had a lot of failures before we actually had successes. And it's because they knew that at some point they would have a success. And I think that might be the mindset of whoever is in charge of the Babylon projects, that they want it to succeed so badly that they're going to try as much as possible. However, having them destroyed so many times or disappeared, whatever that one is, that would maybe put me off a little bit, I would think. And also, one of them was deliberately sabotaged. They know it was sabotage. Yeah. And so I would think that they've all had some kind of interference, that it's not all just, some weird coincidence with, wires being crossed or whatever. I think that I would be worried as to who has it out for the Babylon stations. And is it Earth that's making these Babylon stations? It's Earth people that are making them?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, I would think that they would, if they make more, do they know who it is that's sabotaging? And they're just hiding that? I want to know more. I literally want to know more. And
Yeah.
how Babylon 4 vanished. That's weird to me. Does it still exist somewhere? Did it get sucked into something? I just think it's super interesting. I want to know a lot of things about this series, but that's one of the big ones that I want to know more about.
Yeah. Lou?
If it's just from a human point of view, the fact that this has failed so many times, I find it hard to believe that we would still be willing to continue to build these stations. So there has to be some behind the scenes forces, whether it's the Vorlons, somebody else that can see the big picture as to why these stations are important, is somehow manipulating and driving the continual construction of these stations. So that's where my mindset is at now. I don't believe that the human race on its own would continue to try to do this. So there has to be more going on there than just that. And the fact that the last station seemed to just wink out of existence, I agree with Karen. I don't think that station is gone. The other three blew up, so they're obviously gone.
Mm-hmm.
But so there has to be something different about the fourth station as to why it was taken away. Maybe somebody knew that there was something wrong with it that needed to be fixed, or that it wasn't the right players involved with it, that they wanted that station around, or maybe it was needed for some other purpose. So that's all speculation. So for the speculation people out there, going pretty wild, I think there. But I definitely want to know more about the fourth station for sure. The other three seem to be lost causes because there was wreckage, right? So that I think they're out of the equation in that aspect. But as Karen alluded to, it would be interesting to find out who was behind the sabotage of all those stations, and are they still in play today?
And who has the capability to make something that large disappear? And what are they capable of otherwise? That's powerful. So I'd be a little worried about them.
Yeah, I also think it's interesting, right? Like the first, and this is me putting going back, the Wayback Machine. All right, so the first fully completed station disappears, right? Doesn't blow up, doesn't destroyed. So is it the same forces as you guys are asking? Is it different forces? What's happening, and why I just think it is one of the, I think definitely big mysteries so far that the show given us. Like I would think the Battle of the Line and what changed the Minbari's mind. We now know that Sinclair was sucked into there, brought into the ship, and then released. We know that they wanted Sinclair as head of the Babylon station. Those are, I think I'm sure people are talking to me that there's other mysteries, but I think those are two or three of the biggest ones so far that we've got that we don't know the answers for.
Right. And there's also the constant tweaking by Delenn with Sinclair about people searching for the true purpose in life.
Yeah.
And she brought that up several times. So definitely you're going to paint a target on that.
Yeah,
and,
I agree.
We'll have to see how that plays out in future episodes. And as a general comment, again, like we've gone through a lot of episodes where the telepaths are just like totally not even involved.
Yes.
So I think that is their solution for not having them solving problems in every episode, is not having them in the episode.
I think that's true. And if I were you two, I'd go, then why are they here at all?
Right.
I mean, like, what's the purpose of having this? I mean, like, okay, it makes sense that you don't have every alien in every episode. You don't have the Doctor in every episode. There is this limited, but you do seem like it is almost, I'm only going to pull this tool out of the tool shed when I need it, and the rest of the time I'm just keeping it on the shelf. And that had to be frustrating as a character. And so I am curious to see where we go on that. And what do you guys think? So good.
Yeah.
All right. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, there was also the conversation between Delenn and Aldous about the different classes of Minbari. And then he asked her, says, do you ever agree on anything? And she said yes. And the results were not good.
Mm-hmm.
So is she referring to the Earth Minbari War or something else?
Ooh, interesting. That's
I
a great one.
I
Yeah.
wasn't sure about that.
Dun,
Yeah.
dun, dun. I
Yeah.
didn't catch that. Good cat.
Yeah, that is a real good catch. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I can't take. I remembered it, but I can't take total credit for it because they summarize the best lines from each episode in this wiki. So
Mhm. Yeah.
I'm going through that.
Yeah.
And there was something else here.
By the by, Lou,
Mm-hmm.
you said something about the music. I was reading the Lurker's Guide, and apparently they also were not happy with the music cues in this episode.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. It's. I'm a big movie TV soundtrack fan as well. Yeah, I mean, I've got like the complete recordings of the Lord of the Rings. Like they had those 3-box sets and that. And so I'm totally into that. And I pay attention to it quite a bit. And I felt a little bad when Karen asked on the devs if I had noticed the music in that episodes. And I was going, I really didn't.
Yeah.
but that's because that's such a big idea show that I was not really paying attention to it. But in this episode, it's like that wah, wah, wah.
Yeah.
It's going to come on, really?
Yeah, it was a little too on. I could see that. I could see that a lot. Okay.
So I guess I covered everything else.
All right.
That I was interested in.
All right. I did want to share that there was for a while, and they're now out of print, but JMS worked with one of those publishing on demands, and he ended up publishing every script for every season, and then had a little introduction to each script. And then they ended up he got permission from the other writers, and so they published those scripts as well. And one of the things they offered is but in purple, I'm stunning, a book of Babylon 5 quotations, which is a fun book to read. And,
very cool.
Yeah. And then one of the things you could buy is that you could pick, they had little postcards of different quotes from different characters. And Susan's boom today was one of those quotes you could buy. That, and I do just think it is, as we talked about last time, she thinks of herself as Russian more than she does Jewish. And that does seem this whole Russia, we've always expected the worst. No boom today, boom tomorrow. There's always a boom tomorrow. What? Right. Look, somebody got to have the damn perspective around here. Boom, sooner or later, boom. And just both Sinclair and Garibaldi are looking at her like, man, you have got some dark stuff in your jeans.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah.
Good.
Oh, and speaking of dark, now I remember the other thing I was going to talk about is the conversation between Sinclair and Voss about the fake suit and that. And that it would intimidate people, and Voss asks why, and then Sinclair says, well, nobody knows what you look like, and that makes people a little nervous, and Voss says, good.
Yeah, exactly.
I thought that was interesting.
Yes,
as well.
It is. Very good. Yeah, very, very Vorlon, very, very, very mysterious and vague on their conversation, so that's great. Good.
Yeah, so there's a lot of neat little Easter eggs in this episode.
Yeah,
so
I like that.
It made even the down scenes interesting.
All right, well, Lou, before we get to feedback, you want to give us a rating?
I think I'll give this 7.5 Nicalas.
All right. Karen?
Or Nakalines.
Nakalines.
Yeah,
I'll give it, I liked a little bit more than that, mostly because of David Warner. So I'm going to give it an 8 1/4. Weird tentacles.
All right. Well, I am going to split the difference. I'm going to do not quite the difference, because that would be 7.3.
Okay, 8.5.
Yeah, but I'm going to do 8 unfinished plates of breakfast food.
There you go.
I think this was a fun standalone episode. We got some really nice moments. And once again, you like to check off that a icon appeared in certain franchises, and so you got the great David Warner playing, I think, a very wonderful role. And I do agree, I loved, Lou talked about this earlier, his walking stick later turned into a weapon, right? There's no way that security would think about, oh, we're going to allow this weapon, but it wasn't. It's a walking stick, but yes, a weapon. So nice. Karen, we have feedback, don't we?
We do, from Andrew, and He says that he's really looking forward to hear our discussion. He says, when I first watched Grail, it answered an important question on my mind. How and why is religion so important in the science fiction world? Most of science fiction, Star Trek first and foremost, created a very different expectation. Religion was something, quote unquote, old, relegated to the sidelines in those worlds, dominated by technology. If there were religions, they had to be justified in some way, either by the gods being real ancient beings or pretenders using technology. The idea of faith for faith's sake, an earnest spiritual belief system, was largely absent from the genre as far as I knew it. But Babylon 5 came along with all these very religious concepts like living souls, and it had practicing people of faith on the show. And it didn't just address them the same way. Religions weren't proven wrong. Questions weren't conclusively answered. How could that be? And he says that Grail shows us two beliefs, one being the curse and the other being the Grail, which, I said that too. I hadn't read it until now, just his feedback. So great minds think alike.
Yeah.
And the fact that they're both special because they're new. Their new belief systems. So I really enjoyed his feedback concerning religion. He says a lot of other stuff, again, that we're reading, but we can't read all of it to you guys. So
I need to figure out
insightful.
A way. Yeah, I need to figure out a way to post some of these because it had some really, really good feedback. Do you have Holly's and Nathan's? Do you want me to read one or the other? All right, well then I'll read Holly's and then I'll read Nathan's. Holly said, "Man, talk about an opening. And I was shocked at the reveal before the opening credits that Kosh was the one who killed the one woman who was going to testify against Deuce. Unless it's something else disguised to look like Kosh. Loved how Gaelic told Jinxo that he may not be jinxed, but blessed to survive the destructions of the other 4 Babylon stations. Veer going over Londo's head with the research for Gallup had me chuckling. We didn't talk about that, where like Londo was ready to try to get more money. And then Veer is like, Londo wanted more money for his gambling. I could just see that. I love that. Yeah. The thing with the Tokleon was interesting, and it is a creepy looking alien, that's for sure. And the truth is out there that the other suit was a fake to make it look like Kosh was the guilty party, or hopefully few. A good ending with Jigsaw Thomas taking over for Gallic. A great episode. David Warner did a fantastic job at Gaelic. I'll wrap it up here. Holly from Wisconsin. Yay. Thank you, Holly. Appreciate that. Good points. And then Nathan sent us, he says, this one is another dull human episode, but unlike TKO, this one has aliens. I always just watch their parts. Love how representatives of different species show the way their societies work. It's a retread of believers in both structure and context, but still fun. The Len bullying Sinclair and Garibaldi to meet a well-meaning New Age cultist. The judge is bored to death. The optimistic blowhard looking for compensation for his ancestors' troubles. Incomprehensible aliens. Such great scenes compared to most of this episode. So, yes, thank you, Nathan. He went on further, but he said that he thought this was a mediocre episode. He said he did share, this is it. Apparently, alien species who did abandon Vree were discussed more in a guide to Babylon 5, and we've already seen their ships in the show. It's filing saucers we saw in Deathwalker, but until I read that in a wiki long after the show ended, I never made a connection. Sadly, they don't appear anymore. It seems that all the probing they did when they visited Earth was done for amusement. True to the nature of Vree were habitual or even compulsive practical jokers, taking great pleasure in their antics and are immensely amused by this iconic nature among humans. So, thank you, Nathan.
We knew that already from South Park.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's it. Absolutely. Yes. How about you, Lou? We got any feedback from our YouTube channels?
Yes, we did. And there's quite a few here. So buckle in.
Sure. No, great.
And there's one really special one that I'm going to save to the end.
Great.
I think that it's quite touching. So buckle in for that. But the regulars are here. Marchetti, who's always been commenting, says that and we're talking about TKO now.
Okay.
This would have been a stronger link if there had been a link between Ivanova's and Walker's storyline. Both are about a ritual practice that is usually relevant to a group of people. In Walker's story, we see him struggling to become part of that ritual. Whereas with Suzanne, and I'm just paraphrasing here, that talking about the mixing of Earth culture with other cultures and that. So that was interesting. And then Simon Giles says that the problem, and it's kind of touches on what Martin was saying, that the problem with the Mutai storyline is that Garibaldi is relegated to the sidelines. And he said, typically the episodes in Babylon 5 work best when a guest star comes on with a story that is somehow linked to one of the main characters. And I think this is a common thing that you see in a lot of television shows.
I agree.
Where if they can link it to one of the main characters, it works a lot better. So that point is very well taken. And he says the problem also is that for Susan, there's no physical danger, but it's just an emotional journey for her. So that's why this episode doesn't work quite as well. And then there's Martecki is also commenting about the size of the boxing ring as being an issue.
Yes.
And whatnot. So that was funny. And then I think you saw this comment from Mike Finney, because I see you in here, Jesse. He was saying, I predict halfway through season 2, you may be thinking about increasing the pace to once a week and doing 2 episodes every 2 weeks and make the podcast longer. Well, I think we're getting already pretty long as it is. So we'll have to see what we can do about that. And he also, Martecki says, then we should get dedicated prediction segments of the show where they try to piece together the whole story, or where the whole story is going to lead. So that's interesting as well. Mike Finney's talking about he doesn't think that the fights were to the death. It's just that because there were no rules, that death was sometimes an outcome of some of the fights. So I can agree with that. And then we get down to our last one, and I think this is a new one, is Rob Hogan, and he makes 2 comments. The first one just says that he says it's a rough episode, but in rewatching has one of the best throwaway lines that actually foreshadows something. No spoilers. I'll have to go back to that. I don't remember what that throwaway line was. But the main thing is Rob, he posts again, and this one is much more serious. So I'm just going to read this one verbatim. Enjoying following along. On a personal note, I have been watching all the B5 reaction videos, and I cannot express how important these reviews are for me. A little over a year and a half ago, I had a ruptured aneurysm and hemorrhagic stroke. It's hereditary, and I am lucky to be alive, but I am not without residual issues. One of these issues is that experiencing new things is challenging for me. New TV shows, movies, etc. are very difficult for me to process, so I've been getting the most of my entertainment from watching reaction videos to my favorite things. Thanks again for doing this and giving me the enjoyment of being introduced to something I personally love. So, Rob, thank you very much for reaching out. I think one of the joys of podcasting is being able to bring enjoyment into other people's lives, and this has happened, I think, for all of us occasionally on the various podcasts that we've done, and very touched by your note, and thank you very much for the kind words. And we hope that we can continue to be able to make things like this a little bit happier for you going forward as well.
Agreed. I'm humbled by that comment.
Yeah, I truly am too. And I think I shared this story, but when I first watched Babylon 5, we were going through, and nothing as serious as our friend there, but we were going through an SAP implementation at work, and it was a blank storm. I mean, it was, every day was horrible, and just nothing was going right, and people were screaming and yelling at us, and just everything was horrible. And every night I would get home and would rewind the VCR and watch Babylon 5 as my after Chris and Linda had gone to bed, as my little hour of joy. So that in context, I totally embrace that, having that memory and doing something as special. So as we've said, Lou has been wanting us to do this for years, and it finally, everything worked out. And I'm so glad we did this. And it not only because I love visiting with this show again, but it gives me a chance to spend time with 2 of my favorite people on a weekly basis. So yeah. And if you remember back in the days of Scapecast, we would go long on episodes. So we have no problem taking time and taking as long as we need to discuss this. So yeah. And what everyone doesn't understand is right now we're hanging up and then doing a second episode, because right now we're discussing devs that you guys will see shortly. So yeah, we'll get through this, and I cannot wait to see, y'all's reaction to Lou and Karen's reactions when we get deeper into this mythos of show.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Yeah. And on another note, I too have developed watching reaction videos to things that I grew up loving. So
Yeah.
when I watch somebody watch The Shawshank Redemption for the first time, or The Green Mile, I'm just waiting for that certain scene where John Coffey first uses his powers, and people are going, "What's going on? I didn't expect that in this movie," kind of thing. So that, those moments. And then like when Neil Peart from Rush passed away, I was watching people experience Rush songs for the first time, and that's something that I've done quite a bit too. So I totally understand where you're coming from with that.
Yeah, absolutely. Good. Well, thank you for that. That was perfect.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I think that wraps us up.
I think so.
We are someone asked this question, so I'm going to try to, and you guys remind me if I get it wrong or I forget. We are following the IMDb Blu-ray order of episodes. I know that like HBO, which is how I'm watching this, even though I have the DVDs, it's just easier for me to pull it up on HBO. They're in different orders, but this is the order we're going. So we're going Eyes will be our next episode. So in case anyone is curious.
I'm terrified that we're going to lose that when HBO and Discovery do their merging thing.
Yeah.
So keep your fingers crossed.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Good. All right. Karen, if someone wants to find you, where can they?
They can find me at Oliveria on Twitter, and there's a link in my bio there to my blog, which again, I haven't updated yet. So be patient with me.
All right. And Lou?
You can find me on YouTube at Lou's Reviews, and find the various playlists there for Stephen King, the Babylon 5 podcast, our JKL media stuff. We're doing one-offs like Midnight Mass and Devs. And you can find me on Twitter at Stephen King Podcast and Lou W. Sitzma.
That Stephen King podcast is awesome, by the way.
Yeah. Good. I had a great co-host with me.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, you're pretty awesome yourself. So yeah. All right. And you can find me at Jesse Jackson DFW on Twitter. You can hear me talking Doctor Who every other week with buddy Charles Skaggs. And as always, I'm talking music on Set Listing Bruce. So thank you guys. We will talk to you.
Where can they email us?
Oh, yes. Thank you. You can email us at
jklb5podcast@gmail.com.
Thank you, Karen. I appreciate it. Keep me straight.
We forgot last week. So
Yes. Thank you. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon. And for now, take care of each other. Be kind. And we will see you in a week. Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
And see.